It's okay for everybody to record?
Mm. Yeah, no, it does ask for the when people click OK for the recording. So let's should we start then?
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah, go ahead, Gaurav.
Yeah, yeah, welcome everyone. So we are running on Indian Standard Time today, so which means we are right on time, right? So on behalf of the Bahujan Scholars Group and initiative, I welcome everyone to and also want to make some announcement. But let me also first welcome you all on this first series on Bahujan Scholars First Generation Voices series. So my name is Gaurav, and I am an Ambedkarite sociologist teaching at Eastern Mennonite University in Virginia. Along with Bharat, I have I have uh, been part of this Bahujan Scholars Network since its early days. Uh, Bahujan Scholars is a growing network of graduate students, faculties, um, and and professional based in largely outside India. Uh, our goal is simple but very important, that we want to support our scholars from Bahujan communities by building connections, offering mentoring, both one-on-one and in groups, and creating spaces to talk openly about academic and professional journeys. So we also organize online events like this, focusing on learning, reflection, collective growth. Today's webinar is our 26th event. Uh, and this is one of the first in this new series that we're starting. So this is the first series. And we are really glad that you are here with us. Our past webinars are available on Bahujan Scholars YouTube channel. So feel free to check those out. And if you would like to know more about the network, you can visit us at bahujanscholars.org. Let me also provide that during the conversation, the link for that. So friends, today is an interesting change. You see, I am taking Bharat's role for a day. Bharat, as you all know, is um, an in a
माँ का फोन तो
one of
ऐसे
the
टाइम में
passionate
आएगा ना उसका
one of the passionate Ambedkarites I know, and today you will get to hear his inspiring um journey firsthand. Ironically, he kept pushing me to this inaugural speaker today, along with Swati, but I finally managed to convince him that the spotlight really belongs with him because, after all, he's written a very powerful book, the Dalit academic experiences, and precisely on this theme that we are discussing today. And so his own life story is as challenging, honest, and very inspiring as the journeys he documents. So I'm really glad he agreed. And like all of you, I'm excited to hear about the pathways that shaped him. So before I introduce Bharat and Swati, let me tell you that each one will have 20 minutes to talk, and then we will have Q&A. And I think I already got in my personal message some questions, so I would prefer you try to write in the chat box, so that way we can manage some of those, and we'll also give chance to people can ask directly, but try to do it on message as well. And the so after 2020, after 40 minutes, then we will open the floor, and then we will do the concluding session with some of the summaries and points, and I'll thank the participant. So let me first introduce. So we'll go with Bharat. Let me first introduce Swati, and so Swati and I have met only once, and we did not get much time to talk. But some people, that some people's work speaks long before you get the chance to know them personally. I have followed Swati's writings for years, and one line that of hers that appears in one of the magazine called Savary, where she wrote a very small piece called "I Dare Say I Am Ambedkar," and and there, the first line it opens up with that I met Baba Saheb for the first time, probably in my mother's womb. And I think that was the line that stayed with me. And I wish that, and I've been always missing that because, this shows that, you are Ambedkarite by birth, and what we call here the cradle Mennonites, like you are from a cradle Ambedkarite. And we being from North India took us long time. I only learned after when my father joined BAMSAFE and all other organizations. So this sentence actually alone tells how deeply lived, embodied, and unapologetic her politics is. Uh, Dr. Kamble is an anti-caste intersectional feminist activist and researcher with over 15 years of experience studying women's mobilization, activism, and social movements. Her work asks a very powerful question: what enables marginalized, oppressed caste women to organize, speak out, and sustain resistance in the face of entrenched caste hierarchies and patriarchal backlash? Um, Her doctoral research examined the impact of Dalit women activists on policy-making process, especially how they navigate deeply androcentric and casteist bureaucratic spaces. Through his work, she foregrounds Dalit women not as victims but as strategic political actors who draw on their intersectional knowledge and lived experiences to claim rights and reshape power. Her writings appears not only in academic journals but also on public platforms such as Roundtable India, Countercurrents, Outlook, and Huffington Post. Currently based in Belgium, Dr. Kamble is an elected member of the local Green Party Internal Council and an active member of the Global Educator Alliance, a collective of South Asian scholars, educators, and practitioners committed to building transformative and emancipatory educational models. So we truly are fortunate to have her with us today. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Swati Kamble. So we will hear her. Let me start with Bharat. Let me quickly give a brief introduction of Bharat, though Bharat is, you have been hearing him all the time, but let me just do the formal introduction. So Bharat Rathod Dr. Bharat Rathod is currently the Assistant Director of Inclusion and Engagement at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. He holds a doctorate in international education from UMass Amherst, and his work sits at the intersection of caste, higher education in India, and diversity, equity, and inclusion framework. His book, Dalit Academic Experiences, Stories of Caste, Stigma, and Exclusion in Higher Education, brings forward voices that are too often erased from the academic conversation. So beyond his scholarship, Bharat is the founder of the Bahujan Scholars Network, which is a mentorship initiative supporting scholars from marginalized communities in South Asia. And many of you know that you have been in touch with him with one-on-one mentoring and also the group mentoring. He has also been leading anti-caste advocacy at UMass Amherst and was awarded a campus improvement grant to strengthen this work on campus. And please join me welcoming Dr. Bharat. So I'll invite him to open this session and with his sharing his journey. So the journey would be we have already discussed some questions, but I would be open, and the idea is like, how does this Ambedkarite writings or Ambedkar's life story shaped their experiences? So Bharat, welcome.
Thank you, and Jai Bhim to all. Thank you so much, Gaurav, for your kind words. And thank you all the online participants. So let me first share my screen. Just a minute. Gaurav, screen is okay? Is full screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So, okay. So as we are talking about how did I navigate the new academic environment? So as a first gen student and first gen learner, my journey was very interesting. So let me first, give you the background so you will get idea what has been my journey. So for master program, I came to United States in 2010, and when I started my journey, honestly, I didn't know like how to apply for a visa. I didn't have any idea like how I will survive here in US, and particularly in place like a Vermont, which is like a northern part in the United States, extreme cold weather. Okay. I had a financial challenges. Okay. I didn't have the enough funding in terms of I was sponsored student, but I didn't have enough funding to survive in terms of, how I will take care of myself and so on. Uh, Other thing is that certainly, as most of first gen students and learners, they have the issue is about English language. Okay, so there was in the beginning there was a lot of challenges, and for my master program, I have only idea that I will join this master in sustainable development at the School of International Training in Vermont, and I didn't have any idea what I will do after the master program. So this is a kind of a broad background, and I started my journey in 2010 at School for International Training, Vermont. And when I joined the program, it was a completely altogether different world. Coming from India, I'm the first one in my entire family, or I would say clan, who joined higher education, particularly outside India. So academic issues were really a big challenge. When I joined in first semester, honestly, I realized that okay, in a one for one course or for one class, every week you have to read around somewhere between 100 to 150 pages. It was a quite kind of a big challenge, like how to deal with this kind of reading, because normally we are not used to read this kind of content every week. So it was certainly a big challenge, and I realized that because it's a new language in terms of new accent, right? And English is my third language. So in the beginning, for the first month or so, I was struggling like, okay, I mean, people are talking and I'm reluctant to speak up, and people are discussing. I have my ideas, okay, I have my views, I have experience, but I was reluctant to speak up in the classroom. And it was quite a big challenge in terms of the cultural issue, food, climate, all together. So first month was really a big challenge, including academic issues. And I noticed that very interesting thing during my first semester and month, that students in the classroom, they are directly challenging their faculty or their teacher. And that was quite surprising to me in the beginning, because we are not used to see this kind of thing. Students are literally challenging their faculty intellectually, like countering or arguing against the teacher. That was really shocking to me. And I realized that, okay, here, like anyone can talk and anyone can challenge the ideas. It's not, there is no hierarchy in terms of the student and teacher. Student can directly counter, directly challenge the faculty. And the thing is that I was reluctant to speak, but at the same time, I realized that I, I can share my experience. This is a completely a new world. So I started, try to read as much as possible, and I realized that okay, I can use my personal experience. Particularly, I'm coming from a very strong grassroots background and grassroots activism. So I realized that instead of focusing on English language or academic issues, I should focus on my grassroots experience, my grassroots knowledge. And then I started, after a month or so, started speaking up in the class, and people really appreciated that. Yes, English was certainly a challenge at the time also, but I shifted my focus from language to more in terms of sharing my experience, sharing my knowledge, and making a contribution in class. Academic writing was certainly a big challenge, and particularly writing in APS style or MLS style or that style, that was really a big challenge, because I'm not used to writing in a particular way. And writing, particularly in social science, is still very different compared to in India, right? So I try to kind of translate, my knowledge from local language, my Gujarati to English. So I struggle a lot, and I used to get feedback from my faculty, particularly about academic writing and grammar and so on. So, I mean, I realized that the best part is that focusing on my experience and grassroots experience, because some of my American friends, they shared that, okay, I mean, do not focus more on term in terms of your language, more focus on your experience, the skills you are bringing. And I also noticed that, okay, I should more focus about my skills, my practical knowledge than my English language. And that really made a significant shift in my academic writing also. I basically I focus, as I said, more in terms of my writing, and research was certainly a big sort of a challenge, like how to write in a research format and in academic language. And then I I I, I thought that, okay, I mean, I cannot improve my English or English writing, overnight. It takes time. It's a journey. And I was lucky that some of my friends, they were in a English language program, and they also helped me in terms of focusing more in terms of sharing experience and sharing your knowledge and skills instead of writing in a perfect English. So that was the kind of shift where I focus more in terms of my knowledge and my experiences, and more in terms of how I can contribute in the class. How can I share my knowledge, my ideas in terms of my academic writings. Another thing I noticed, very interesting thing, because I was in a sustainable development program, so in broad social science, and the focus was about social justice and so on. Because I took a one class, and one of my class teacher, Professor Janki Natarajan, who was my first mentor, because she realized that my background, when I started sharing my personal journey, my personal experiences, they Professor Janki, they realized that, okay, this is my background, and they started actually encouraging me and supporting me in terms of my personal issues and in my academic issue. And in my class, I have noticed that many of my black friends, they were sharing their racial experiences, and they were raising their issues, particularly regarding racism. And I realized that that is the kind of a point where I can also talk about the issues of caste and sharing experiences which is like similar to race. So I started kind of a bringing connection between race and caste. And at the same times, in social justice classes, people were thinking about how to connect theory and practice, because there were so many people were talking about many good or fancy stuff, but there is little to do with the practice. And Professor Janki was a kind of a teacher, where she was not just talking about the social justice, but she was actually practicing social justice in the real life. And she was kind of doing programs and the protest and particularly awareness programs that really helped me to connect theory and praxis, which I later on converted into my academic writing also. As I said, like I started connecting race and caste, because I didn't know at that time what is a Black History Month. So February is the Black History Month. Next month is coming. And India, we don't have any kind of a month like Dalit History Month or Adivasi History Month or Bahujan History Month. So first time I realized that, there is a there is a kind of a recognition of the Black people or Black history in academia, which is very interesting. And I realized that, okay, that is the point where I can connect casteism and racism to understand, and particularly educating my friends and American faculties, because in West particularly, still caste is relatively a new topic. Okay, and people confuse between caste and class. So they, whenever we talk about caste, they feel like we are talking about class. So there I started reading myself, and I connecting caste and race in more academic sense and in my writing also. Yeah, one more thing is that, here in academia, people really value your personal journey, your personal story. So when I started sharing my personal story in terms of my interfaith marriage, my community development work, and how that actually shifted my research and particularly my academic scholarship, that people really appreciated. And people again think that, okay, we are not just talking in terms of, you know, a theory point of view, or not doing just intellectual work, but people are also connecting intellectual work with the real world practice and praxis. Another important thing I realized that during my whole journey, particularly regarding my first year, I felt like I'm still in the United States. You know, there's so many times I felt like I'm still in the United States, because it was really I was thinking that this is unbelievable. Okay, this is not happening. So there is a term called imposter syndrome, where people, like, you know, critique themselves. Okay, I'm really deserving this. Okay, or am I really suit here? Or you doubt yourself, like, you know, why I'm here. So that was a kind of a constant struggle during the first year or semester. You know, I struggled that. And that is a very common among the people, or you can say scholar from first generation scholar, or scholar from marginalized background, because they doubt their own knowledge and the larger kind of environment, which is you can say dominant culture environment, where where scholar from marginalized background, they develop imposter syndrome, and they doubt their own idea, their own scholarship, and their own skill sets. And I was talking to one of my American friend, and they told me a very interesting thing. They said that, okay, I mean, why are you doubting yourself, Bharat? Because you're coming here all the way from completely different world, right? Different education system, and this is your third language. We are most of the American, like, only they can speak only one language, and you are contributing, you are participating, you are writing in your third language, English language. So you are much better in that sense, like, you know, than most of American students, those who are completely in their protected environment. So you are doing really great here, and do not doubt yourself. So I mean, then I change my perspective from there, you know, from imposter syndrome to assertive scholar, you know. And I started again, you know, focusing on my real world experiences, and speaking up in my classrooms, you know, sharing my experiences. And in many places I challenge my white friends in terms of the issues of racism, or issues of, you know, a so-called developed world versus third world or developing country, and so on. So that was a really big shift in my academic journey in during that first year and first semester. And fast forward, after my master degree, I joined PhD at UMass Amherst. And in my UMass Amherst journey, I completed my PhD, and my topic was Dalit academic journeys. You know, in that I studied and I researched about how the first generation, particularly Dalit scholars, you know, they experiencing issues, particularly regarding issues of discrimination, issues of inclusion, issues of various kind of, you know, subtle microaggression, and so on. And my personal journey in this book, so I published my dissertation as a book, which is this one, Dalit Academic Journeys: Stories of Caste Exclusion Assertion in Indian Higher Education. This is not just about my academic scholarship, but this book is largely also based on my own academic journey from India to United States. And in this book, I'm not just explaining or narrate the stories of Dalit scholars, but a big part of the book is also talks about how we can transform the Indian higher education system. Because in India, we do not have a social, you can say not social, but institutional mechanism to address the issues of marginalized students, all students, not only just Dalit students, but women, first generation rural students, and other marginalized students. How we can embrace institutional mechanism like diversity, equity, and inclusion in in Indian context and how we can create a new programs and mechanism to support them. And I would like to talk more about some other topics in our question answer session. So I'm concluding here. Thank you.
Thank you, Bharat. Thank you for sharing such an inspiring journey, Bharat. Yeah, so we'll give the comment later. So let me now invite Dr. Swati Kamble. Swati.
Thank you so much, Bharat. Listening to your journey, I went back in my own journey. It's like it's resonated with me so much. So thank you very much for sharing this. I am very sure that the students who are here will take a lot of inspiration from your story or are already inspired and are on the journey. Gaurav, thank you for a wonderful introduction. It gave me goosebumps. All of us need that push once in a while, and really, I feel exhilarated after listening to the very warm introduction that you gave about me. Jai Bhim, Jai Savitri, Hul Johar to all of you. First and foremost, I want to start by saying that I want to make this space a safe space for all of us. So I invite you to ask questions and clarifications. I hope I'm audible. I just want to check that once before.
Yes, Swati, very well.
Yes, okay. So my only request would be to ask the questions respectfully, share your reflections, and make the space for others to share too. So we can make this a lively, interactive space. Now, I've been tasked to share my academic journey and how I navigated my academic environment. To answer this question, I need to set a context. I'm a first generation university graduate, and for that matter, the first in the family to complete secondary school exam. So in India, we call it SSC. I find it very important to share the story of my family and their life choices that created the opportunity of education and emancipation for me. It starts with my grandfather, who followed a caste occupation, one of the many inhuman traditions that untouchable communities, formerly untouchable communities, caste oppressed communities, were tied to. In my state, Maharashtra, this is called Potraj. My grandfather wore traditional colorful garb. It's like a long skirt. He grew his hair long, which were matted and coiled. He carried a small wooden temple of a regional goddess called Mariai on his head. He carried a whipcord and begged for alms. He danced and whipped himself as his penance or loyalty to the goddess. He also did a traditional theater during village carnivals. It's artistic, but also stigmatized. There is also colonial history gaze that makes it a stigmatized caste occupation. But as a young man, when he got to know about Ambedkar and Ambedkar's message to renounce Hinduism and practices that kept us untouchables, the then untouchables tied to untouchability and superstitious beliefs, my grandfather stopped this work. He threw the small wooden temple that he carried on his head into a stream of water and walked miles to attend a meeting where Ambedkar was going to speak. On his way to the local town, as he walked, he pulled out strands of his long hair as an act of renouncing his old enslaved life. For me, my family's journey of emancipation started with this rebellious act. I grew up in a slum of Mumbai, in a small laborers' colony, a room which is 20 meters square, 10 by 12 in Indian context, with 4 siblings, parents, and grandparents. Most of my family still continues to live there. I mention this specifically to put things in perspective for all of us, as a reminder that the fight for dignified life, social justice, and rights is far from over for us Dalit Bahujans, even as we educate ourselves, mouth the colonizer language, and live in a Western society. So having grown up in a laborers' colony of cotton mill workers in Mumbai, caste was being performed all around me. Stereotypical gender roles and patriarchy were pervasive, but so was a collective spirit and oral histories of anti-caste struggles. I saw the struggle of my oppressed caste working class family up close. We are 4 siblings and we all went to Bombay municipal schools, so BMCs. My elder brother and cousins had to shift from BMC school to partially government funded private school for their secondary education. As the municipality schools we went to were only available till 8th grade. Later, the Free and Compulsory Education Act of 2009 made the government schooling available till 10th standard. But what I observed was that many from our laborers' colony, including my siblings and cousins, would fail the year they shifted from the government school to the private school. And some would eventually drop out. My siblings did too. It's not that the schools differed so drastically. They were both in the same locality. They were taught in Marathi, the vernacular language, as the medium of instruction, but the government schools did not seem to have any moral or policy obligation to teach their pupils with the same rigor as the private school would. So it largely depended on how motivated the teacher were to class, which was 40 plus students. As a young girl, I was sure that the same destiny awaited me, that I would drop out, I would fail, and I begged my mother to shift me to private school earlier. Upon a recommendation of a school teacher, one of the rare ones who enjoyed teaching and cared for her pupils, my mother shifted me in the standard 4th, the primary education, to a semi-private school. This school was a vernacular medium school as well. The teachers had followed the same government education training. So they had done the B.Ed or M.Ed from the same government training institutions. But their attitude towards the pupils that were coming from the government school were drastically different. They had given up on the government school children, believing that the students that were coming from the government school had no interest in learning and that we were waywards. In this narrative, when I look back at it, many issues come to my mind around caste, class, intersectionality, and how the educational aspirations of students coming from marginalized locations are harmed due to these stereotypes. Fast forward, I went on to study in institutions of higher education in India and Europe. Every time I climbed up a ladder of higher education, bachelor's, master's, eventually PhD, I became exclusive, the only Dalit in the room, the only person of color in the department, at times isolated and left to find my own answers and coping mechanisms in institutions based on colonial legacies and individualism. These institutions reinforce the idea that individual is responsible for their failures and successes. And so I worked hard to fit in and to work towards academic excellence and objectivity, quote unquote, in my pursuit of knowledge, all of which I look at very critically now. Thanks to the anti-caste movement I had exposure to in my student years, which in turn piqued my interest in social movements, their mechanisms to challenge oppressive structures, and their resilience in the face of colonial, neoliberal and caste-based erasures of their histories from public discourses and academic knowledge spaces. This research interest opened up a wide array of literature on critical pedagogy, Black and Indigenous feminist knowledge praxis, intersectionality and reflexivity, and importantly, decolonization and debrahmanization. Now I come to the segment where I would like to leave you with concrete ideas that help me navigate academic spaces within India and outside. The reason why I told my family's story is to say that we need to know our roots, be proud of them, and use our unique lived experiences in whatever career path we choose, just like Bharat reinforced it. We are all examples of it in a way. Gaurav sitting here, Bharat, myself. Be it academic research or entrepreneurship, science or business or engineering, whatever field it may be. Your lived experiences shape your knowledge. So embrace them, try to use them in your academic work. But importantly, let them become your shield. Because everywhere you go, pre-existing stereotypes around caste, gender, class, race and how good your English is will follow you. But knowing where you come from will always give you courage. Secondly, build a community of friends, mentors, and network around you. For example, during my bachelor's studies in social work at Nirmala Niketan College of Social Work, seniors from Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai and Nirmala Niketan formed a Bahujan student network. I'm so glad that we are here, Bahujan Scholars Network. So this is back in 2003-4. I started my bachelor studies journey in 2003. And I remember I would just take a small segue and shout out the names of some of my mentors, former mentors. Not many people would know here, but in Maharashtra, some of them are in the US as well. Chitra and Satyajit Somavanshi, who are in Philadelphia now, very strong activist, live in Philly. We have Pravin More, Vidya Tourne, so several of them, Sachin Bhagat, who started this initiative out of nothing, just so that we could come together. We would be each other's shield. It was a vibrant space for me. It was the time when we would use whatever resources were available for us. In Mumbai, there was an organization called Yuva, where we would hire, they would rent a space. And I think already in 2004, Professor Ram Punyani was already invited. So I was getting that exposure earlier on as a 20-year-old into not even 20-year-old. This network contributed immensely to my personal and professional growth. It built a strong foundation for critical thinking and rigorous research and exposed me to the anti-caste movement, activism, and writings. Thirdly, diversify your network and find ways to gather knowledge from diverse fields. For example, when I first came to Europe for my international student exchange program at Stockholm University, this was in the Department of Social Work in 2006. But I could audit courses from other departments. And because I had interest in international relations and gender studies, I followed courses in these faculties as well, which was later helpful for me in my master's studies and in development studies and gender studies. I actively reached out to professors I had studied with to seek guidance when I was choosing my master's studies and PhD programs. In this regard, what worked early on to get into academic programs was that I researched several universities, mostly in Europe, for their strong funding programs. Because I really have to highlight this because it's very difficult. Can we mute this iPhone, please? Yes, thank you. It's very difficult to sustain in the Western context. I think it is very difficult to sustain anywhere when you are doing higher education without any source of funding. So it's very important to always find scholarships. And there are several scholarships. Although on a second thought, I do realize that in the US, at least before the political climate that is there now, I think we live in another world since 2016, or for us, 2014. US has a vibrant political climate on the university spaces as well, which resonates to what we have in India, which Europe lacks very much. It still predominantly remains white. That is not to say that there are no strong, diverse movements here. There are. But you do feel isolated in the university spaces. But still, so for example, there were scholarships like Erasmus Mundus and European Commission's funding for master's and PhD programs in various research areas. Each European country has its own government scholarships for students and researchers coming from so-called Global South as well. For example, my PhD, I got the Swiss government's excellent scholarship to do my PhD. And I think they offer it in South Asia also to 70 students. Do not underestimate the efforts required to follow an application process. I don't mean to say it to denigrate anybody, but really, especially carving out your research interest and voicing it clearly in your statement of purpose or motivation later, it is very important. Nowadays, we use AI, ChatGPT, and most universities are accepting the future of academia with AI. Yet, I would advise you to use your own ideas to shape your unique research and letting AI help you rather than using it as your only resort or source of inspiration. If research is your calling, then you need to understand the publication process in the field as well. Read articles, reach out to the authors, reach out to the professors. During my journey, many professors responded positively and were happy to guide. So take that chance. Also, once you are in academic institutions, you need to immerse yourself and become an active member of the knowledge community, like Bharat also highlighted. Join committees for international students, students' unions, art groups, or whatever your extracurricular interests are. For example, I joined an amateur theater during my PhD, and it made my first year at the university very active. We did even Antigone. I had never heard of the very many Greek plays and so on. It was an experience. But I was also part of feminist study circles on campus. I actively participated and organized activities and both cultural and political. For example, in 2007 at Stockholm University, we organized a students' union protest when 40 international students walked alongside us, four Indian students, to the Indian embassy demanding justice for the victims of caste violence in Khairlanji. After this protest, we also did a film screening combined with Ambedkar's birth anniversary celebration to raise awareness around caste and to engage international students in solidarity. Over the next decade, we also started other new initiatives to engage with critical diaspora. We created South Asian Scholars and Activist Network in Europe and organized several anti-caste history months over the years. Lastly, we as Dalit Bahujan folks are constantly reminded of our social responsibility and debt to our community and of paying back. This is very important. At the same time, student life is very intense. So we need to find ways not to weigh ourselves down with guilt or the burden of responsibility towards our family, towards our community. But know that when we earn the privilege of gaining this knowledge and acquire gainful means, we will contribute. So I wish you all very, very good luck with best with your journey in the academic spaces. And I think we can open the floor for questions, and then we can ask more directed. We can answer more directed questions.
Thank you, Swati.
Thank you so much. Jai Bhim.
Thank you, Swati. Thank you so much for sharing. This is really, you mapped out many barriers that shaped by history, which reflects culturally, like linguistic in terms of Bharat and you also both, and that all the network based, like while also showing how resilience and timely mentorship that matter deeply. Like for example, in Bharat's case, Professor Janaki Natarajan was very pivotal, and for Swati, like access to strong and diverse networks early on proved very transformative, and I think these network continued to sustain her even abroad, and that's what the journey is. So there are some questions. So I wanted to also to let me do with this, and then I'll open up. So just in quick, this is your test now for both of you. In 30 seconds, I want you to answer this in 30 seconds. What does giving back that we learned in the Ambedkarite movement. What does giving back mean to you in an Ambedkarite sense?
Go ahead, Swati.
Well, what we are doing right now, being there for our community in small and big ways, whatever knowledge we have gained or resources we have, sharing them. I think that would be my answer.
I think, okay, my response to your question, Gaurav, is that giving back to the society is that realization that you are here. You means like I particularly, or we all are here. That is kind of a testimony that people in the past, those who contributed their entire life, so many people from history, right? And that is why we are here. So we are not contributing back to society. We are just paying our dues to the society. So to me, it's our social, moral, professional responsibility to work towards other fellows, period. We are not giving back to, we are paying our dues. And let me reframe it. Not paying back, but paying my dues to society.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you, Bharat. Good. And in 30 seconds, you did that. Great. Okay, so I open the floor. Anyone wants to ask, they can open their mic or raise their hands. We can actually be more systematic. And also you can type. Uh, so yeah, feel free to raise your hands, then I can call your name. Okay, one is okay. So let me start with Shashi and then Priyanshi, and then we have one of our senior Ambedkarite activists, Anil Wagde. So we'll have third one will be Anil. Okay, Shashi. Shashi is an assistant
Hi,
professor.
hi, Gaurav.
Yeah. Mm.
Hi, Gaurav. Hi, everyone. Bharat. Hi, the lady that spoke so well. Yeah,
Swati.
thank you for sharing your stories. Swati, thank you, Swati. Such an inspirational journey, and your English is also very good. Thank you very much. I teach in a university of Bihar. Apart from teaching my MA students, I also have a batch of SC students, scheduled caste students. There is a scheme of Bihar government under which the government provides free coaching for civil services examination to SC students. What I what I feel while teaching them is that the out of 60 students, 40 students that come, they come only for attendance and attendance because those who have 75% attendance at the end of the month, they get a scholarship of 3,000 rupees. So out of 60, 40 are motivated only for getting this very small amount that the government offers. And while the coaching is for civil services preparation, most of the students, their highest dream is to prepare for Bihar constable examination or at most to crack the sub-inspector examination. So my question to you would be, what makes them underestimate themselves? I keep on encouraging them in every class of mine, but I find somewhere lack of motivation. And I keep telling them that you are very unique in the sense that in 5,000 years of your forefathers' struggle, you have got an opportunity to sit and get educated by the many best of us who have actually cracked the civil service examination. But none of them, or very lesser number of them, actually want to go for the highest level. So, what do you think could be the reason behind it?
Mhm. Thank you, Shashi. Hmm.
Thank you.
So should we collect the questions and then we answer? Yeah. So Priyanshi, where did Priyanshi? Priyanshi, just in 2 lines. So that is the challenge we all have. Now we have only 10 minutes left, and the question, there should not be any story, just the direct question in 1 line, and that's the skill we all have to learn in today's Zoom timing. Okay.
Absolutely.
Priyanshi.
Okay, so my question is for Dr. Bharat and Dr. Swati. Uh, what is the difference that you have observed in the protest that Gen Z hold today as a Gen X and Gen Y person?
Very
I
good.
hope that is 2 lines now.
Very good, Priyanshi. You got really for #1 award today. If I'm recommending your name. Okay, Anilji.
So both the speakers talked about imposter syndrome. We also heard from Neeraj Ghewan, whose Oscar entry we all know, Homebound. And a lot of scholars and achievers tend to have this imposter syndrome as to have not arrived in their conscious, in their back of their mind. How do we counter that? How do we get rid of it? How do we work through it? Yeah.
Wow, thank you, Anilji. This is the shortest question I've heard from Anilji. Anilji has a lot to say, that he's one of our mentor. So I really appreciate Anilji. So, Bharat and Swati.
Okay, so about Priyanshi's question about the difference between Gen Z and Gen X. I would say very difficult to say because I don't know in terms of the differences, but I can say one thing that in current social media influence and the way media is basically ruling our day-to-day life, we more tend to find a shortcut, and we try to go to the chat gpt and the Gemini and so on and so forth. So that is kind of a shortcut available, so people now do not read or do not engage into a more rigorous activity. That I could see the big challenge or big difference I can see. Swati, would you like to add anything?
Yes, and I mean, I agree with you on one way, but on the other way, I would say that because there is at least in anti-caste spaces, there is a historical legacy, there is a movement. Uh, our Gen Zs are instrumentalizing the social media. They're creating an alternate space even within the social media space by creating art, um, by using this space to democratize and sharing their unique ideas. So, yes and no. There is also, of course, this. I think ChatGPT, not only Gen Z is victim of it or guilty of it. I think it's affecting all of us. But there is a fine balance that we need to find. How do we use AI, not let it overtake us? So that would be my answer. I still respect the younger population's zeal to engage in social and political issues. It continues. And when there is a movement, history background, it is even more thought through. So that's one. I just wanted to respond to this question by Rajesh Chandra because I think it was not clear in my yeah, what I spoke. The school that I went to was private only in name. I think the BMC school had better facilities, better rooms. It even had library, but unfortunately, it was only till eighth standard. But the private school was run by a local sort of a person with political clout. It was just a building without toilet facilities even or library. So it only had what it had was each classroom had a teacher. So it was in vernacular medium. So it was not better in any shape or it just gave that idea that oh now we are shifting towards lazy, so this idea of government school not offering better teaching because there are motivated teacher in so my outlook as a young kid who wanted better education for myself, of course I got more critical as I grew, became scholar and started to question all these frames of, and that also ties to the answer towards Mr. Bhagde's question. um, like we have so many ideas around what is better, which are guided by this whole colonial erasure of our knowledge, which Bharat also very articulately talked about. Like we tend to downplay, underestimate our knowledge that has been passed on to us by generations of struggle, and that happened because of the colonial systematic colonial erasure. And now only we are able to find tools ourselves to re-examine our knowledge systems, to embrace them, to feel proud of them. Over the several decades this has been happening, so that's um also is a tool for us to not feel that imposter feeling. I think it's easier said than done, but it's a process. We need to find the mentors that we have here in this space. We are so happy that all of us are here and we are in some way or the other mentors to each other, to our younger friends, colleagues, students. So reinforcing that we deserve everything and more, that we have the entire community and the struggle of generations to guide us. And we may fail, which is okay, which is part of the process. But we are also dealing with a very dysfunctional kind of world right now with neoliberalism, capitalism. There is all the rules of the games are shifting as we navigate this space. So the only way for us to walk through is kind of how shall I say? The airplane is flying, and we have to change the nuts and bolts of it. So we have to kind of make the change happen as it goes. So I don't know if it is clear, but I think concretely what we are doing by producing this critical knowledge right here is also a way to go.
Good. Thank
I
you.
suppose.
Yeah, thank you, Swati. I think you answered very well. And I also take into account that what Anil ji is saying, that it is not the colonial syndrome, it is more of a Brahminical mindset, and which is an important point. I think we also keep referring to this. So imposter syndrome, I think it as it reflected in your talk also, like you said that many times when Bharat says that one does not truly belong in the academic space or professional space, there is always a self-doubt, there is a fear of exposure, there is always this hesitation to claim your own authority, your own writership. Many times is always like giving credit to others, or not like really owning. So that it reflects really, and I think Brahminical mindset and that ideology plays a big role in that. I also appreciate
Hold
the
on,
question.
Gaurav, sorry,
Yeah.
Can I? Yeah.
just quickly, one point to what Swati said and respond to Anil's point is that imposter syndrome is a really pervasive phenomena among all the scholars from marginalized background. So two part of aspect. I'm trying to touch upon each one very quickly. So institutional one is more about how the larger institution, which is like a dominant culture institution. Here, suppose it is called PWI, predominantly white institution. So how the institution basically convey the microaggression through various means and messaging in terms of the racism, right? But the other part is that as an individual, so many of my black scholars, they recognize that, and they also talk about imposter syndrome. And so that there is a lot of awareness, particularly in US, about imposter syndrome. But in Indian context, actually, scholars from marginalized background, most of them, they don't know what is imposter syndrome. They experience it, right? Because acknowledging or educating yourself, that is also a very important point. Okay, why you are experiencing that? Okay, why it is happening? What is the larger theme? What is the larger, you can say, environment,
Absolutely.
or structure, or here we
Absolutely.
call it campus climate. So in that context, you need to recognize and you need to understand your
Absolutely.
own internal struggle and psychological struggle about imposter syndrome. And as Swati said, we also need to recognize that we all are first generation learner, and we made it so far. That's a big achievement in itself. We recognize it, we should accept it, and we should counter wherever it's possible that okay, we are scholar, and we deserve this space, and we are entitled to maintain and enjoy this space and titles. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I also come
Yeah,
in for a minute?
sure.
I think Bharat nailed it already, but it's like it is looked at as an individual failure when anybody utters even. So that's also mastery of the system. How it tricks you into believing that if you feel imposter, it is because something is off with you, rather than the system mechanism, which are like, okay, there you are tokenistically paced, or there you arrived. Now you're there. You arrived. It's looked at as the last, like reservation is looked at as the last step on your journey, rather than something that is your starting point.
Yeah.
That having said, Columbus had written in his diary, I don't know verbatim, but like he would say how the indigenous people were so naive, and that they had all these resources, but they were freely sharing them. So it's the mindset of the colonizer who goes into a culture which is so generous, just like our cultures. I mean, our Dalit Bahujan anti-caste culture, where is such a generosity, we tend to acknowledge from whom we have received knowledge, and we always, like you were saying, no, Gaurav, that we tend to give credits to, which is a positive trait of ours, which this Brahminical system, the colonial system, the settler colonial system, has like painted it as bad thing. Being generous is painted as bad. Oh, just lock it up and it's our knowledge. So I think it's very, very important for us to continue to have this generosity and acknowledgement of our community and so on. I think I wanted to make that point.
No, that's important. Thank you, Swati. Yeah, and in fact, Jeremy made an interesting point about how imposter syndrome also connect to class and social status among white scholars, and it's an endemic aspect of academia. Yes, but like how the public narrative often celebrates success despite adversaries and all, but then it misses out a lot of the actual cost, which is emotional, social, intellectual, in surviving, caste in academia. So I think that's what your talk was about, that how you come over with that. Now, let me ask you one, because there are, so let's not go in much of these deeper thing. We have some audience which are very coming here for the first time, and I want to have some take
strike a balance.
let me ask you a very basic question, and this is for our audience. That what can you share an instance where Ambedkarite thought or his writing directly influenced a decision that you made in your academic journey?
Bharat, do you want to go?
Can you repeat the again question?
So can you share an instance or an event where Ambedkarite thoughts or Ambedkar's life directly influenced a decision that you made in your academic journey?
Okay.
In the meantime, you guys can actually have type your questions, and we have, let's say, 5 more minutes, and then we will end.
Okay, I would like to go because So particularly one thing you asking about particular thought or instant, then I would say, because this is one of the article I have written. So currently in top of my mind, that article's first para actually it emerges. So in 1916, Ambedkar wrote a piece in that he clearly mentioned that, I'm quoting it, that wherever the so-called dominant caste people or caste people, at that time he used the caste people, will go, the caste become a global problem. That was the first line of my article, and that is regarding the Anti-Caste campaign I launched on UMass Amherst campus. And that was a very interesting part, because the thing is that we started a campaign based on the same idea now, because caste is now a global problem. So in the United States, particularly, there are so many incidents reported that people from Bahujan communities, they are experiencing caste discrimination, caste biases. So I started that campaign in 2020. And now, interestingly, Gaurav know that we have Dr. Ambedkar bust in our Du Bois library, which is like 26th floor library. So that is the kind of a quote which stick, and so many people, particularly non-Indian people or American people, they understand that, okay, how that 100 years ago, the prediction made by Dr. Ambedkar, now it's real. So they can connect with that. And again, the connection between Dr. Ambedkar and Du Bois and so on. So the whole our anti-caste campaign was successful because of that particular one idea and that particular thought, or that statement by Dr. Ambedkar we connected with in current situation in 21st century.
Yeah, thank you, Bharat. Yeah, Swati, quickly.
Yeah, I mean, in my academic journey, my entire shift into entering research is owing to Baba Saheb Ambedkar. Basically, when I was doing my master's study, I decided to look at the political participation of Dalit women in Maharashtra, and what were the factors that were facilitating them to enter the political space at local level, because at local level caste is so direct, in your face. So the backlash is violence. You get beaten up, you get killed, you face humiliation, and you are staying in the village. So you will face it for generations even. So despite all that backlash and danger of losing your life, still, what makes it Ambedkarite women to participate actively? And I wanted to focus on this research because I had heard during my bachelor studies stories of the proxy women leaders. So women would be placed as counselors in a village, but their husbands or the landlords would be the real. So these were the stories of Bahu, Beti, um, who would become then the political participants, but the husband would yield real power. And on one hand, I was reading those stories, and on the other hand, from National the NCDHR campaign for Dalit Human Rights Organization had brought out this research called Dalit Women Speak Out. And in that report, you read about Dalit women who are speaking out of the oppression, violence they are facing at the village level while participating. So I was trying to understand what is making them to assert. While we hear these stories of proxy women participation versus I hear another reality of women from a certain community asserting against real danger that they are facing. And that came from the kind of strong Ambedkarite movement that has been built in the regions. And so that has been my line of argumentation from my master's to PhD. So Ambedkar's thoughts that has inspired emancipated people not only remain in the writings but also taken by people in their lived reality. That's what has inspired.
Yeah, thank you.
That's how my journey of master's and PhD began.
Yeah,
Continued.
yeah, I have some questions, but let me take this one from Kavya. Kavya is actually a PhD scholar in Canada. So she said, how do you look at your grandfather's Pothuraj's practice as a subversive denial of pollution ascribed to Dalit bodies? Very interesting, very very academic. Very nice. Kavya, thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
Anilji always bring very interesting historic facts. Thank you, Anilji. I yeah, really appreciate that.
Yeah. How is it going to go? Do we answer one by one, or
You can just you can maybe also connect with
yeah, Kavya,
Kavya
I've been
later.
trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Answer Kavya later, or
yeah, you can answer Kavya later, but if you want to quickly reflect on like in 30 seconds, then I have a question for you, then we'll end.
yes, please. So Kavya, I've been also looking at it critically, really, because recently I did not fully listen to, but I heard, and there is a backlash that Dr. Shailaja Paik is also experiencing when she's talking about the idea of good woman and bad woman, because the Dalit women, the vulgarity of caste book. But for example, in some of the speeches that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar gave to women, he asked them to, wear certain attires, remove these markers of caste. And I think in that time for my grandfather, it was important to hear that these markers were oppressive. I think over the years, if he would have had the chance to reflect upon it, he would have also looked at it as artistic. If I understand your question correctly, if you want to elaborate it further, I would understand that too. But
Kavya, are you
because,
there?
for example, he also did poetry and he did this art form, theater, and so on. He sang Gaurani, Maharashtra people would know. And he wrote. So it was quite artistic in a way, but also there is an erasure of all this knowledge again. Yes, Kavya.
Yeah. Kavya.
Thank you so much for answering that, Swati. So I was looking at it from this context where like Dalit bodies are viewed as pollution, and thereby gods cannot enter these bodies. But within that context, like many of our communities have always taken up in the forms of grama devtas or village deities, and have very well articulated and said that we are pure bodies and gods can enter our bodies through these art forms. So because you were talking about indigenous cultures and their art forms and stuff like that, where we can also see it within our anti-caste Dalit Bahujan communities, how do you think about it in that context, that these practices can also be a counter hegemonic to Brahminical hierarchy?
Sorry.
Yeah, I've heard, I mean, I have been exposed to this perspective, and I also, when I was writing this piece back in 2016, I was also debating with myself, because at the same time, it is my grandfather's story that was told to me when I was 9 years old, and for him, it was really important to renounce that. And that's how he felt human and purified after removing all those markers. So I understood that, and I felt the emancipation that he was trying to tell me. But at the same time, I have missed to highlight this aspect of him using his art, wearing saris and dancing. My father, when he was little, of course, it was, now I can romanticize it because we sit in these spaces where we have luxury to do that. My father he felt exhilarated as a young boy to wear sari and dance for a grain of I don't know if you heard, there are some Maharashtrians मापटे चिपटे बोलतात मराठी मध्ये, like to get a small grain, handful of grain, you are dancing in the village yatras. And so there was some humiliation attached to it, but that humiliation again comes from how this Brahminic culture has made our culture feel inferior, feel it like that it is polluted. So yeah, I juggle with it because I know that art form is so powerful that the Mariai was sitting in his hair, that's why he was not washing his hair, and it was matted and the temple was on top of his head. It all symbolically seems so subversive if you look at it. But at the same time, there is this whole story where he pulled each strand of his hair to say that I'm renouncing this. I don't associate with it. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Swati. These are very powerful stories, and I think, and since stories kind of endure over time, Bharat and I, felt that it is very important to learn from each other's stories, and we decided that, this is the thing that we needed to document, like all these struggle academic journeys and, the stories of resilience. So Bharat will be reaching out to many of you to share your stories on this platform, and so our goal is to create a resource so that we can inspire and guide the younger generation, because there are a lot of that illusion that our community lives in, and there is no guidance. Like many times, like we learn from Ambedkar's writing that education is very emancipatory for Dalits. That's what the notion we live with, that education is a very emancipatory thing. But is it really the kind of education that we get? So what do you need to kind of really make education more emancipatory? And that is one of the questions I want to leave you with, that do you need to read Ambedkar to get that emancipation? And what do you need to do? Because otherwise, because you see how we are here, let's say 50 people here, and there are few platforms and all, but majority of the things that my own friends and my own community, when I see, have no consciousness of that. Does that notion apply to them in terms of emancipation? So maybe in that context, I think we are just like 0.1% people from our communities who are leading or who are engaging with these dialogue. So we have a very strong, very, very heavy responsibility to educate many of the generation and our coming generation, to guide them in a proper, it's not just about the formal education, but the ideological education as well. So in that context, I just leave that question to you, that what does emancipatory education mean? And I shared Bharat shared the feedback form, so please do share your feedback. This is very important. Again, it will go back to you. We'll ask you. We'll ask. So first, we are starting with the academic part. So many of our people who are in academia will be part of this sharing this story, and then eventually we wanna branch it out to the other field. Like there are many engineers who we want to learn their story. They're all first generation. Many of them are first generation. So and that's the thing. And so I want to thank Swati for sharing that, and also want to thank Bharat for doing all this. This is a very important task, and I feel free to reach out to any of us, to whoever we can contribute in making this documentation possible, and that's for the next generation. So with those words, I would thank everyone. Thank you, Anilji, for sharing so many good thoughts. Thank all for your questions, Priyanshi, Kavya, and Jai Bhim, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Jai
Thank you,
Bhim.
Gaurav. Yeah. Go ahead, Swati.
I just wanted to say, Jeremy, that I didn't get the chance to answer. Maybe I can reach out and we can
Sure.
yeah,
Just
elaborate on that.
yeah, sorry, last comment. Please give your feedback so we can improve and we can also plan other events, what Gaurav just mentioned about. And thank you so much again for everyone for participation and asking questions. And let's build a community of scholars for this kind of talks and engagement. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Swati, I could hear. I'm Anita. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Gaurav. I was a
thank
little
you.
late,
Sure,
and then
sure.
I have been hearing Swati's name for so many years. I'm from Nepal, so it was so nice to listen to your presentation, and I'm so proud of you and for your contribution and achievements.
Thank you,
And you are a
Anita.
very good
Thank you so
inspiration.
much.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much.
Thank you, Anita
Thank
ji.
you, Gaurav.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah. Anita ji, I would like to connect with you because I'm trying to
Namaste.
expand beyond India because still
Thank you
very
so
much
much.
focused on India. I was just talking to
Bharat,
Gaurav
Bharat,
other day.
Bharatji, we met at there, right? The university there in Boston, the event, Ambedkar event.
Yeah, the Brandeis one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brandeis,
Brandeis,
yes.
and yeah, during the Boston, yeah, we did it. Okay, sure. Thank you
Sure.
so
Yeah.
much.
Please, yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.